everybody. Welcome to the session. My name is Lindsay Clanfield. I am a English teacher, teacher trainer, and writer. I'm from Canada originally, but I'm based in Spain, in Elche, actually. So hello, Castellon, hello, Madrid, and others from other parts of Spain. Thank you for joining me this morning. Today's session, we'll be doing a short session on oral production. So speaking and enhancing speaking using video and audio. I'm going to expand that actually to be video, audio, and images. So I want to talk about multimedia to enhance speaking. And what I'm also interested in recently is this is a project that I've been working on, a course book called Studio. So I'll be using some examples from that and telling you a bit about that. But of course, recently in the past year, I've had to do a lot of teaching and training online. So I will be talking about how some of these activities can be adjusted and done in an online environment, like this one, for example, like a Zoom class or things like that, okay? Can I just quickly ask, are all of you who are here either teaching or responsible for teachers doing online lessons at the moment? I presume you are, or are people doing online lessons? Yes, no, teaching, yeah. Kiara, teaching. And is it online in Zoom? Do you do Zoom classes as well? Was doing online, not now. Now back into the classroom. Okay, great. Well, these will be useful for either way. Okay, this is going to be quite a practical session. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about the background to some of these sorts of activities. And part of the background was that my co-author and I we're kind of had a thought about how you improve speaking, how we're doing stuff in the classroom to improve speaking. And in a way, our classrooms, we feel, are a bit like a rehearsal space. They're like a practice space. In the same way, my co-author is a musician. He said in the same way that actors and musicians have a rehearsal space. So in the same way that musicians practice things, the classroom is also, the language classroom is a bit like that. The place is an empty space, a bit like a rehearsal space. I mean, it's got chairs and desks and stuff. The focus is on what is happening in the same way that a rehearsal space is for actors and musicians. And it's also a space to learn. Yeah. This is a quote here from a creative, I think, musician. Can take any empty space and call it a bare stage. And so in a way, the classroom in terms of place is a bit like a stage for that. It's also a bit like a rehearsal space for the people that are in it. The teacher, often people have been writing about the teacher almost as an actor, you know, so sometimes when you begin teaching in a way, it feels a little bit like acting. You're presenting, you're telling your funny stories, or you're giving your good presentations of a language point or something. And usually we have these kind of things built up or ways that we will teach certain things. But the teacher is also a director. So you're directing the students towards their oral production. We're thinking about things like mime, voice production, gestures, facial expressions. We engage students with humor, with surprise, and so on. And the students are learning and improving their oral production, a bit in the same way that an actor learns and improves their craft, or a musician learns and improves by doing it over and over again. And all of this, the actor, the musician, the language student, and these spaces is the preparation for production is preparing to perform in the real world. So that was some of the background, that the way that we were looking at oral production in the language classroom was through the prism of a rehearsal space. Yeah. And so what I would like to also look at is activities then that do sort of mimic that. I'm not only going to talk about role plays, although that is the obvious one, but I do want to talk about how pair work and group work can be, for how we can enhance this with multimedia towards a rehearsal space. We will look a bit at role play and improvisation and how you can use video, audio in interesting ways for that. Storytelling is something else that we were interested in, how students can tell stories and how we can use audio, video, images to enhance those, and voice exercises. And then the reading, writing, and listening is like the very last bit, because that's almost like the script. And I'll be mentioning how all of these things have fit into this book studio that we wrote. But lots of these activities you can do yourselves on your own. Okay. So the script, in a way, is the course book. But obviously, lots of activities that people do in a rehearsal space don't necessarily need the script. And we're going to start with things that aren't in the script, the course book, but just general activities. And we'll begin with pair work and group work. Can you all hear me, by the way? Can I just get a check-in that you can hear me, that I'm not going too fast? Can you just check in? Yes, it's okay, or go slower. All fine, says Kiara.
Yeah,
Miriam,
fine.
Rachel, Rahele, all good? You can find the chat, by the way, and add some comment in the chat. Excellent. Okay, perfect. So let's begin with activities. And ways of warming up towards oral production, often in the language classroom, take the forms of pair work and group work. Let's look at the typical kinds of things that you might have. Pair work stuff, the typical things like questions, or brainstorming, or giving personal information, or puzzles and games. Here are some examples. Here are some sort of like a brainstorming activity. This would be at the beginning of a book, or something you would do in a lesson on animals. Write down the names of as many animals as you can in 1 minute. Which of the animals on your list have been in characters, books, films, or TV series? So an interesting way of kind of adjusting that, but still just a sample thing. Or a conversation question based on something that you have with you, like talk about the keys that you have with you. You know, like, so people take out their keys. Is the key to my house? Is it the key to my locker, to my bicycle, or my car, or etc. I think that lots of these things could be enhanced. And I noticed this when I was teaching online. I would be doing some classes where I'd be sharing the book online. So you've probably done this. If you had Zoom, you may have had a digital version of your book. So you share the bit of book and you can zoom in on bits and pieces. But for some activities, I prefer to doing it by showing like a big picture first in my Zoom class, and obviously then later on I do this in the face-to-face class. But so for our keys one, for example, showing a big picture like that, asking people what they can see, and then saying, all right, tell me what you think these keys could be for. What could you see a key? That one could be like, maybe this is like a key for a house, or a key for the front door of a house, a key for like something for tightening furniture or things like that. So looking at a big picture, I find a big stock picture of keys, then using that to sort of make the impact, then follow up with the question. So I would take out the question from the course book, make a big picture, and then put it in small, and then ask students to hold up in front of the room, in front of the Zoom room in my case. So I would say, everybody hold up a keychain, and then talk about we nominate people to talk about different keys. So even just using a big picture in that way. That was like, to just look at, that was our keys one, using just an image to sort of like bring it out a bit more at the beginning. I'm beginning with very simple things with images. We'll see how sounds, video, and all of this can keep going. Another one that I like to do is using like a picture where like this. So for the animals, brainstorming animals, where I would show the picture, but I would show it very shortly. So I would show the picture, and I would say, after 10 seconds, take a look at the picture, 10 seconds. Okay, how many different animals can you remember from that picture? Start writing in the chat book, in the chat box, sorry. So I'll show you just for 5 seconds, and then each of you do this. All right, hold on, let me just, go back to this here. All right, I'm going to hide it again. 5, 4, sorry, there we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Write some animals that you saw in the picture. Usually I have it better prepared for the class, so I wouldn't have gone out of there. What? No, write the names of animals. Names of animals. Let's see it again. Look. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we got a monkey, lions. What else was there? Giraffe, fox, polar bear, tiger, monkey, elephant, tiger. Someone else wrote lions. Okay, then I come back and then we do, so that was our initial sort of warm up to enhance that, to enhance the activity. And then in the face-to-face classroom in small groups, or maybe a breakout room in Zoom, they now need to write down the name of a number of animals in 1 minute and then do the next part as well. Yeah. So using a picture on and off. Yeah. I was cheating a bit with them in front of you. Yes, indeed. Um, so using pictures in that way, either big pictures, and often I found the bigger the better. So I would sometimes, here I left the words on, but often I would take a picture, and we'll see later on, making it cover the whole screen. So not even a thing around it gives the impact more. So I've been experimenting more with that. My colleague, who's, as I said before, is a musician, had been also experimenting using music to enhance speaking activities. And one thing he'd been doing recently was doing playlists. Where can you get the pictures? For that, I just did a Google search on like collection of animals, or keys, or something like that. The animals one, if you want lots of ones, a good keyword to search is I spy. I spy, and then plus whatever the word. So it's like I spy animals. They'll give you there'll be pictures of like lots of different animals, because you can then play for games like I spy yeah. So music as well, to enhance ones. My colleague was doing a lot of experiments with playlists. So let's take a look here at this kind of activity here, where they're using asking students to make a playlist of songs. So they have a discussion where they have these situations like waking up, traveling by car, getting ready for a date, dancing, walking in the rain, doing nothing, singing in the shower, etc. They have to then think of a playlist, because now all of our students are used to making playlists, the song, the artist, the genre, and then they give that a rating. And then using those playlists to share with each other, you know, like to talk about, oh, what song do you listen to? What song is a good song for this? What song's a good song for that? And in fact, even better, they make the playlist and they share it with each other. He had them sharing it with each other in the Zoom room. So they would like share their audio, and they would share, or they would hold up their phone and they would play a little bit of it. And then the other students had to guess what kind of song, what situation this song fit in with. Yeah. So that's using playlists. I want to finish our section on pair work and group work there by just quick talking about how one of the things that we have in pair work and group work that helps enhance it in the course book. You know, in the course book, you've got like at the back of the book, there's student A and student B. Do you know what I mean? The student A, student B, looking at the back of the book, like I'm doing, you look on page 130, I look on page 140, and we do the activity. Hold on a second. Sorry, that was my cat. Was trying to, dangers of always working from home. So you've got here the back of the book I was saying. And I think that that's a way of kind of making a good oral activity where one person has some information, the other person doesn't. But I'd always been frustrated by having those in the back of the book, partly because my students got the pages wrong sometimes, and sometimes they could see all the other activities. And what I'd always wanted to think was, wouldn't it be nice to be able to have those activities, those like picture kind of activities in A and B separately, so I could have them on separate pieces of paper, or even better, on separate images. And so in this course studio that I did with Helbling in Richmond, they were really nice enough to create an app where you could have all those pair work activities in the app. So you would have, the student would have like student A taps on the activity for like, now you, so I'd say in class, now you go to find student A on unit 1, whatever, lesson 3, and student B has theirs. And so they're using the pictures or whatever, but they've got it now and they don't see all the other stuff. It's much easier to find. And for the students that don't have the phone or can't use the phone in class for whatever reason, we also made those as separate PDFs. So each of those pair work activities have their own PDF, which you could print in color and do it like that, so to help enhance it. So that was a kind of moving on from the usual back of the book with all the activities there together. Okay, so The next area that I wanted to look at is the whole area of role-playing improvisation. And here I want to move on from just simple images to using more like video as well. Okay. I'll start though with simple things, simple stuff that is probably more image-based before we get more complex. I've always been a big fan of doing role plays in the classroom and sort of little drama activities, very nice, simple, easy ones here. Here's a very simple one that that I like to do with my colleagues and my classes. In this one, each student chooses a feeling adjective. So each pair, so they choose like afraid, angry, bored, excited. Yeah. They need to think of an object to use in the scene: a bike, a cake, a sofa. They prepare a short scene that includes the object and the feelings. And if we were doing it online, I experimented with this once online. They do this in the breakout rooms. So they have to make a short scene where one person is on one video, the other's on the other video, where they're talking about something, but they include an object. So the object might be a phone, you know, so the scene might be, my phone isn't working. How do I change the battery? The other person says it. Or a different object might be, I'm just looking at interesting objects that I have around here, might be a pair of scissors, or it might be, I mean, we put like a bike, a cake, a sofa, because that would be a little bit more complicated, but just you have to have an object with it. Then what happens is they come back and I nominate the students, and if we're doing it in the online class, they put their microphone on mute. So they mute their microphone like I would do now. Yeah. So you could see I muted myself so I could still talk, but you couldn't hear me. And then they presented their scene to each other with the others watching. They had to use a lot of gestures, and the others had to guess what they were talking about. And then they did the scene again, talking it through. So that was another sort of fun activity where they're doing silent movies, which also worked really nicely in the Zoom classroom. If you were doing it in a face-to-face classroom, they present it just miming it. Yeah. We get to actual oral production afterwards, but this is sort of preparing for later on little scenes and stuff. Okay. Again, the scene can be really short. This is for like B1 students. Yeah. B1, maybe pre-intermediate as well. Okay. Another one that I like to do is using photos. So using like big images here, where what I say is each of you or in a pair, this is a photo. You choose one of the photos and you imagine that you were in this photo and you posted it on Instagram. And what you have to choose the photo and then prepare to talk about what was happening around the photo. Yeah. So you're going to be giving a little discussion like oh, what about this photo? Well, this photo was taken and then they make the presentation of that. They kind of do their presentation and we see all the photos and people have to guess what photo they're talking about. So that the way that you make this into a whole activity, students look at different photos, you find different photos online, or you use your own social media photos that you're happy enough sharing. They choose one photo and they imagine they are one of the people. Who are you? How did you meet the other people? What happened before and after the photo was taken? You talk about your character to the class in pairs. Can they identify the photo and the person in it? A really interesting way of doing this is if you took photos of your own social media and they did this as a sort of improvisation thing, you could then tell them the real story behind it. Obviously, you don't want to use very personal photos, but kind of if you had other photos that other friends had shared and you said, can I use this with my class to do a speaking activity? They have to make a presentation. Then you share with them the real story. Sort of like, okay, let's hear what the person, you know, I'll tell you what they really said. Yeah. So that's another nice one. In fact, if you were doing it online and you organized yourself, you could even have the real friend whose photos they'd been doing that with come on and join you and sort of say, yeah, I'll tell you the real story. Then it becomes a listening activity as well. Yeah. So using kind of social media photos that they have to put themselves in the photo. Okay. All right. All of these so far are things you can do quite easily with just images that should be easy to find. Let's look at another way of using images, but here's more words now and animation, where we're using scripts and animating scripts in different ways. Okay, So, Lars, are you there? I don't know if Lars.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Can you stay on audio, Lars?
I think I have to
Oh, okay. He's not there. Okay, no problem. Elena.
tell me.
Okay, are you able to do this with me? Can you stay on audio?
Okay, come on.
Okay, Elena, I should have asked you before, but Elena, you're okay. All you have to do is you're going to read B. Yeah?
Okay.
I read A. Ready?
Okay.
This is what I do with students, by the way, everybody. So Elena's my student right now. Okay. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to be
sure.
A, you're B, Elena. Ready?
Right. Okay.
Okay. Morning.
Yeah, hi.
I'm making us some eggs.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just gonna have some coffee and toast.
Really?
Yeah, is that okay?
Fine. It's fine. Pass me the bowl, please.
Sure, here.
And the salt.
Yeah,
Do you want your coffee now? I said, do you want your coffee now?
I hear you.
Is everything okay? So this is a little dialogue, right? A very simple little dialogue, a little bit of mystery there. But then what happens is, if I were going to do it again,
Oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to
now, no,
remember.
but you now invent, we do it again. I'll be, you be A, Elena, I'll be B.
All right.
And we invent that we put whatever words we want there. So you are A and I am B.
So there's no need to repeat exactly the
You
same
don't
dialogue.
repeat. Okay, Sylvia, no problem. You don't need
Okay.
to repeat the same words. You just put whatever makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, you go ahead.
Morning.
Yeah, hi.
I'm making us some breakfast.
No, I'm good. I'm just gonna have some coffee and a muffin.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, is that okay?
Fine. It's fine. Pass me the glass, please.
Sure. Here.
And plate.
Yeah.
Do you want your coffee now? I said, do you want your coffee now?
I heard you.
Is everything okay?
All right. So you see here, what we're doing here is I cut out certain words and then they add their own words. Then I'm not going to do it again and again. You get the idea. But then the next part is students now do it themselves in pairs, but then they write the next 3 lines of the dialogue as well. Or I could continue taking out other words from the dialogue like that. So I continue to animate it this way. So using the animations by putting boxes over. And to do that, just so you can see how I did that. Thank you, by the way, Elena.
You're welcome.
So the first part is, this is how I do the whole activity, is that they read the script. Who are the people? What's the situation? They complete the conversation with their own ideas. They continue with their own ideas, then they role play from memory. But to help them enhance it, I put those boxes to cover up certain words and then them do it again. Yeah. So you can do this with any dialogue. You just add a dialogue and then, like about trying on clothes or buying things in a shop or whatever. Okay. So that's another kind of activity. All right, I'm going to ask people to help me here by posting something in the chat. All right, just write, see the picture there of the man and the woman? What are they doing? Write in the chat box. What are they doing? What, very easy. You don't have to guess that much. Anyone want to? Shopping. Yes, so they're shopping. All right, they're shopping, yeah. And so I'm going to show you the conversation here. With the students, I get them to guess what goes in the gaps. Excuse me, how much is this? What do you think goes in that gap? Anyone want to suggest a word for the first gap? How much is this jacket? Blue jacket. Good. Let me see. It's $150. Wow, that's what could be number 2. Expensive. All right, good. So you've got the general idea. I do this first with them. They complete the conversation. And then we're going to watch a video to just, I'll show you the video just to see, so you can check your answers. But so far, so normal. We'll see how this gets interesting, though, in a moment.
Excuse me, how much is this blue jacket?
Let me see.
It's $150.
Wow, that's expensive. Can I try it on?
Of course. What size are you?
Small, I think.
Okay. The mirror's over there.
Thanks.
All right, so you see that they've seen that, they've checked their answers, they've done a bit of the comprehension. I'm now going to, this is what I would do in class. Now I ask them to prepare a similar conversation, yeah? But if we look at this conversation, if we look at the video, I mean, there's another one, there's another example as well of another person.
Can I help you? I'm just looking. Okay.
If we look here, you can see in the video that the background is not a real background, right? So the background is in fact done, it was done on a green screen. And so the image was projected onto the background. Yeah.
Excuse me.
And so hold on, let me just stop this. Their task is they get this to prepare a conversation. But the difference is in the background, this is the background, right? That the actors had. And I also have the background as a teacher. And so when they do their conversation, I display the background on the whiteboard or in the Zoom class, like here. So we are now in the shop. In the same shop that the actors were in, you are now in to do your role play of the conversation, right? The role play that we can see here. You are the customer. What are you looking for? What size do you need? You are the sales assistant. Help the customer. But now we do this with this as the background. So you have the picture, and the picture gets presented at the front of the class for the students to get up and do the role play sort of in the shop. Yeah. We have, and in the course, what I was really interested in was having loads of these different conversations, little functional conversations where the background was the place. So we have one on the street corner asking for directions, one in a park where you'd have a conversation in a park, any other kinds of ones. And if you're a teacher I know some teachers have had a green screen, you could then project it and they can make you add it to the screen after, so they can film their own answers. That's rather advanced. I don't know necessarily how to do that, but that's how we did those things where they filmed it with a green screen. So this here was what we called the videoscapes background. And so these were images that we used to then put the students in the situation to help them with the role plays, to help enhance their speaking by thinking, okay, now you are in the place. We had ones for like hospitals, airports, all different kinds of places, shops, hotels, where you would have little conversations. And then when they role played them, we could actually say that you are in the place. Yeah, they appear in the book. So in the book, you have the video, but then the teacher also has the image of the background image of the thing, which they can use to display. Yeah. Okay. My colleague and I had done this before on our own kind of self-published thing as an adventure called The Island, where people were on a deserted island and all the images were different things, like you're on the boat, now you're on the beach, now there's a different thing happening here. So we've done this kind of work before. But in studio, Helbling were really great in that they really allowed us to sort of, hey, yeah, we'll do this with the green screen, we'll make the images available for the teachers and all that stuff afterwards. So using these backgrounds can be done in other ways. And I think also we can do it for storytelling. Let me show you an example. Hold on. Let me come to this one afterwards. Yes. So remember I said the videos as a videoscape as a background. You can also find moving images of videoscapes. So here, this website, by the way, this is not in the book. This is an extra thing that I've been doing more recently, is a website called Pexels. So Pexels has free video clips. And if you select, you can select from a bunch of things. So you can have cities or natures. These are like video clips with no sound, just the video clip that can be used to make advertisements. But they have a whole bunch for free. And so with students, I've been recently getting them to make their own sort of oral presentations so here's one that I downloaded from the website just for free of a beach thing. And the thing that I was asking students to do is it's a 20-second clip, and they had to prepare a small audio that would go with the clip. It would have to be a story about the beach or a memory of the beach when they were children. I'll play you the clip so you can just see there's no sound. But here, the student would have to prepare a 20-second speech about the beach. I don't have one prepared, but let me just imagine that I was doing that, right? So I could have something like, when I press play, the student begins. I remember when I was 3 years old, my parents always took me to an amazing beach. The beach was near the town of Elche in the province of Alicante. There were dunes and there was beautiful water, and we went and played. But you get the idea, right? But they basically have 20 seconds to make a small presentation with the video background. And you could find all kinds of things at this site: cities, nature, animals, sometimes of even people doing things, where you can play the clip and then they make the audio. They prepare the audio to go with it, and they give the commentary as the video is showing. Obviously, this would work fine in an online classroom, but also in the video in the face-to-face classroom. Yeah, this, by the way, is a new thing that I've been working on. We didn't put this in studio. We do have all the other things. Another storytelling activity, which is interesting, is using pictures, where students, you have a series of pictures that could be put into different orders. So here is one from our book in elementary in studio. They had to put the pictures in order to make a story, and then compare to see if each of them had the same order, but then each make a story and then continue the story. So using the pictures and using pictures that could be moved around. Obviously, this would be nice if you could actually physically print out the pictures, cut them up, and then they could kind of organize them themselves to make a storyboard and tell a story. This is another one that we can do here. Here's again the using the video. Sorry, let me just, there was something. No, sorry. Another one, as I said about the pixels, in the same way that I'd been looking at using video clips to tell stories, I recently discovered an enormous quantity of free sound effects, because I had once done an activity where I had a series of sound effects that the students heard the sound effects, they had to make a story. But then I thought it's so hard to find sound effects, so you had to pay for them. But now if you have Spotify and search in Spotify for playlist sound effects, you find hundreds of playlists of sound effects. So here, if we take a look, this is just a screenshot I made of me looking on Spotify online for playlists of sound effects. You have applause, fire alarm sound effects, ghost noises, scary sound effects, horror sound effects. And what's really interesting here is students, you know, in Spotify, you can make your own playlist by choosing different things. They could make their own playlist of different sound effects and use those to tell a story. So basically you set up you choose like 5 or 6 sound effects, prepare your story, and then as you're reading the story, you play the different sound effects. Or as a teacher, you make a playlist of sound effects, you play it for them, they have to then brainstorm a story that goes with those, and then tell the story for that. So I've been recently looking at different sound effects for enhancing oral speaking, so getting them to use those audio clips for oral speaking. Yeah. Do all of you know what I'm talking about how to make a playlist in Spotify? I don't have it open with me right now to exactly show you, but if you kind of Googled make your own playlist in Spotify, it's very easy. Or ask a teenager in your entorno to help you. Yeah. So, but what I didn't know, Chiara, was that the sound effects. So that's great. All the sound effects, it becomes a really useful tool for teaching in many different ways. Okay. Oh, excellent. Richmond has a playlist in Spotify. Excellent stuff. And that the last thing, and this is straight from like acting stuff here, is getting students to think about body language and so on. Okay. So here we had an actor telling a story. We have a bunch of stories told by people, sort of like these are like real life stories where people are telling them in a studio. And we asked the actors to kind of use not too much, but use a little bit of body language as they're telling the story. And so one of the tasks is to get students watching someone, a proficient English speaker, tell a story with body actions and movements, and then them trying to first retell the story and then tell their own story with gestures. Just let's look at an example of how this works with this person here.
My husband loves everything to do with technology. And about a month ago, he had this great idea. Honey, he said, we're going to make the house more secure. Okay, I said. Are we going to get a guard dog? No, I'm going to install a smart lock. Everybody has a smart lock these days. Really? Nobody I know has a smart lock. But anyway, we installed it and everything was fine until last Thursday morning.
Okay, so you can see it's a little bit of an interesting story about a smart lock based on a true story about a smart lock. But what you notice there, what I asked my students to notice is notice how she's using her hands. She's not doing a lot, but sort of like a smart lock, like da-da-da. Because often I find, especially I used to do examining for PET and first certificate. And I would always try to train my students. I'm like, if you seem really nervous and uptight, it hinders your fluency in those exam things when you're kind of sitting like that and you're not moving your hands and you're holding on really tightly and stuff like that. Whereas if you can sort of, move your hands only a little bit. And often the students are quite comfortable doing it in their own language, but they all sort of freeze and get very awkward in English. So I try using videos of other people telling stories, telling things, how she's like showing nervousness by doing this, where she goes, really? So a smart, like the keywords are often like the hands come out like this, the gestures come out for the keywords. And so then they have to prepare their own story where they use limited body language, Like again, using gestures for like over there, or this was a long time ago, that kind of a gesture and things like that. So asking them to work on personal stories with thinking about gestures and so on. So that's another one there. Okay.
My husband loves everything.
There we go. The video's playing again. The last part that I want to talk about here is the is again looking at audio, but looking at a narrower view of speaking, which is just pronunciation. So looking at pronunciation and how we can learn from voice exercises and also other areas on different ways of looking and doing pronunciation. So obviously we have all our kinds of typical pronunciation activities that do with word stress, sort of stressing the important words, intonation, things like lots of activities, notice how people use intonation, show interest, copy the intonation, things like this. Pay attention to the different sounds. So these are the kind of typical things that I do in my teaching class. Being more interested also in now observing how people and how video, actually I don't have it here, oops, sorry, but we have in the book, you can see the useful phrases. Often we show the same actor who did the phrases in the video now standing in front of a blank screen pronouncing the phrases, especially important at the lower levels. So you can see their facial movements, how their lips move, which words they're stressing. Hello, this is Marta. It's Marta. Hi, it's me, etc. So these are phone calls, but you can see the person, so you can really focus on the face, how the mouth moves, and so on, watching and listening and repeating. So adding video to the pronunciation practice. This is something that we've been doing with lots of the useful language phrases. Yeah. So I thought that was quite useful as well. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about in the session was the something that when we were working on this book, we went to, with the editor, we went to an Italian restaurant in England. And at the Italian restaurant, when you went into the toilets, into the men's washrooms, there was this gentle classical music playing. but at the same time the classical music was playing, you heard someone saying Italian words and Italian phrases. And they were just like saying phrases like, you know, like love, like buonasera and buongiorno and ecco di qua, or I can't remember what the words were, but it just was a sort of like this nice little music and like Italian words being said and Italian phrases being said. And it was just sort of there as a sort of subliminal way of picking up some Italian words. And it made me think also back in the 1970s, I don't know if any of you ever heard of this, where there was sort of these records that were put out where it said like, learn Spanish in your sleep, or learn to speak English in your sleep, and you could put the audio cassette or the record on, and it had music and just phrases being said over and over again. You were supposed to be able to, like, by osmosis, pick it up. I don't think this is a way that you would learn a whole language, but I thought the idea was nice of a way of reviewing word lists. And so one of the things that we did was looking at how, let me see, where's the audio on this? Oh, sorry, the audio is missing in this, but what we had put is we put the music and that you would hear the words, and then you would have to circle the words as you heard them. So you would hear like some music and you would hear things like cupboard, lamp, oops, sorry. The music, in fact, was the sort of the first music on the first slide here. Let me go back and show you that. The audio here to give you an idea. So you would hear this music. And then you would hear like someone say the word like cupboard, lamp. The lamp is next to the cupboard. And I mean, there would be sort of like the sentences would make sense, but it was sort of, they were all done like that, and things would build up towards a little conversation. And then in the activity itself, oh, here it is. Sorry, yeah, here you are.
Play the piano. Motorbike. I can play the piano. And ride a motorbike. I can play the piano.
So, there would be different kinds of songs for different word lists. So different kinds of music and different things. And little by little, the students would be sort of, they could listen and circle the words that they heard. So you would listen and play the piano, motorbike, there it is. Right. And then there was rice, cupboard, shelf, etc. And then they would, then they could listen and repeat the words and phrases. But instead of just hearing the words and phrases, now they're hearing them with a bit of music. If you're kind of a musically inclined person, it might help you remember. If you're not, maybe not. But for the more musical type people, this was kind of really interesting. And so this was a little extra thing that we wanted to include. They were called vocabulary beats. They're not a part of your regular lesson. They're more part of a review thing or something like that. It is a bit like chants. And this had been done all the time in young learner classrooms. There'd been often the recognition of jazz chants as a way of learning vocabulary. But then it was sort of viewed like, once you're an adult, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. And I don't know if that's so true. You know, I think we can still learn from these kinds of things. Okay. All right, let me just go to the next one. I'm coming to the end here. This is supposed to be a 50-minute section, just to talk a little bit about where all these come from. So in a way, I was talking about how all of this enhancing is a bit like a rehearsal space. In other words, a studio. And so for all of this, you need the script, which would be the course book. And this is Studio, the book that I'm talking about here, which has just come out. It's distributed by Richmond, published by Helbling. Just wanted to add a little bit about that at the end here. So lots of those ideas, the videoscapes, some of those speaking ideas, the vocabulary beats are all in here. However, you can probably do a lot of this stuff with a little bit of like creatively, making your own kind of activities like that. So definitely try it out. You can get samples of many of these activities at the Studio website. The other thing that we did in Studio is that all the texts in Studio, all the units were, each page was on a different channel. So you would have like a sports lesson followed by a history lesson, by a food lesson. So you wouldn't have one unit which had all food for like 4 lessons. It would be more varied. So we did kind of what we called a channel approach, sort of a more lesson approach to topics rather than a unit approach to topics. But within that, we had lots of activities like the ones that we were talking about before. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Lindsay.
everyone. And yeah, I guess that's it then. So we'll
Yeah.
stop there,
Thank you
everybody.
so much for your time
Yeah,
and for
you
your
can find out
ideas.
about me or my co-author studio there, and you have the Richmond information.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay.
Lindsay. Have a
right.
nice
Thank you
weekend.
and
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Have a
Bye.
good weekend, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.